Hello everyone, welcome back to the Please Listen podcast. I'm your host, John Follett, and stay tuned because later in this episode, I'm going to be talking about not a brand new day, not Spider-Man A Brand New Day. I talked about that in the last episode, but a brand new, it's not brand new actually, now that I mentioned that. I'm kind of, you know how in the Peacemaker episode, I was like, if you talk about something a year after it came out, it's cool because it's like, you're taking a look back. But if you talk about it like 3 weeks to a month after, you're kind of late. I'm kind of late to this one, guys. I will admit that. That was my bad. I was a little late to this, but I'm here now to talk about it. It's a big blockbuster movie. And I don't even mean like big as in like word of mouth. I mean like physically, like the screen that I watched this on was physically like humongous. It was massive. I'll get into that later. But like, it is a big movie, both physically and in the public consciousness of the public. We're going to be talking about that, an adaptation of a very classic tale known as the Odyssey. So I'm going to be talking about that later in the episode. Probably the second half is going to be all about that, so stay tuned. First, I wanted to get into, this isn't really movie related or anything. This is kind of just, well, it is somewhat movie related because you may have seen in the last video uploaded on this channel, it was a little bit different. It wasn't a podcast. I left my room and I went out into the wild. I took a trip down to LA, Los Angeles. I've been to LA multiple times before. And not that specific part of LA because I went on a trip. I flew on an airport on a plane by myself for the first time ever. I've only been on a plane twice. It was a return round trip. So to somewhere and back to my home. That was like when I was like 16. And so it's been a while since I've been through an airport and on an airplane. I went on one by myself, which is a big milestone, I guess. And honestly, it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. It was pretty smooth sailing. And so I took a trip down to LA. I flew on a plane to LA. I went through LAX. I know about that airport. And I saw, was this at LAX? Maybe it was like a store or like a booth, and it said TMZ, and it was the TMZ logo for like the gossip channel, and I was like, what is this? I thought TMZ was specifically like celebrity news, but they just have like an outlet at airports that you could just buy like Cheetos from. I was like, what the hell? What is the crossover here? Like, why do they have, I guess brand recognition to just get their brand out there. You'd be like, man, this store has really great prices and some great snacks. I gotta look up what their whole deal is. And you go, oh great, and they talk about celebrity gossip too. That was exactly what I was looking for, actually. A convenience store / gossip celebrity news website. I guess maybe because they sell Hollywood related items because it's in LA. That's the relation to the store and the website. But that, I don't know, that just kind of blew my mind because it's been a while since I've ever even thought about TMZ. You think their security cameras have the TMZ watermark over them? That's a good joke. I just came up with that on the spot. No notes, no script. Anyways, yeah, I just thought that was interesting to mention. Yeah, I went to LA. I went to some famous museums like the Broad and the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. That was like our main reason for going. Which, by the way, there was like 5 floors, and one of them was like a rooftop terrace thing. That rooftop and the floor below it were both closed. So I was only able to explore 3 out of the 5 floors of the place. I don't remember paying 3/5 of the price though, so that's my beef with the Academy. So I will accept. You could either give me there's $25 for a ticket, 5 floors, so that's $5 per floor. Either you give me back my $10 that for the 2 floors that I missed, or you send me in the mail like a custom like Oscar with my name on it, and it says best podcast host. Those are the only 2 things that I'll accept from the Academy for me to forgive them and publicly retract my hating on them. Okay. But yeah, I did that. I also visited some locations that were notable for being in the movie La La Land, which starring Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, which recently, not recently, I think it's about to have its like 10 years since it came out. So I thought that was a fitting title and thumbnail for my vlog. I thought it was perfect timing. I went to those places. There's also another famous place in LA that I was not able to. Well, I guess the whole movie's in LA, but I was not able to go to the Griffith Observatory, which a very like popular scene from that movie takes place in. And it's not for the lack of trying, because I intended to go there. I should have realized that was a very popular place, and finding parking, impossible. It was like the worst. It was the worst. It was the most congested, messy, like experience of trying to visit somewhere. Because also, like right down, the Griffith is on this big hill. I was able to see the building. It was a beautiful building. It's on this big hill, and like down the hill is this Greek theater. And this Greek theater was also having a show, like the music from La La Land. They had like an orchestra playing the music from La La Land. And typically, I did some research. I was like, when you visit the Griffith, the Greek, if they're not having a show or like a concert, you're able to park there like for free, right? But on that day they were, so I was not able to park there for free. And they have, they had parking, like the closest parking lot to the Greek was like $60, which was like, damn. Drove past it. There was another one for the Greek that was like $50. It's a little further from the Greek, but closer to the Griffith. And I went up the hill. It's almost impossible to find free parking besides, the off chance that the Greek doesn't have a show going on. Even then, I'm sure they charge for parking. A lot of the stuff on the websites was like outdated. And it's such a mess. I got up the hill. It took me forever. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to pay for the Griffith parking. It's like $10 per hour. Not that bad. Those parking lots, however, were completely full, and it was just people were just going in and just looping out because there was no parking at all. I'm like, how did they? We went on like it was a weekend, so it was very busy. I'm sure if we went on like a weekday, we also went for the sunset because most people probably want to see the sunset while they're at the Griffith. Not a very prime spot to be doing it. However, if it's like this every weekend, like why the hell? Like get some more fucking parking, Griffith. Like you gotta like streamline this or like expand your thing. If it's how this it's like every weekend, like probably during the summer it's like that most days of the week. So they're just like it's just designed to be the most congested. Where like 90, not 90, but like 50% of the people who are trying to go there just can't. They physically can't, unless they like walk 40 miles or they park super far and they take the shuttle, which the shuttle also has to go up that hill that takes like so long to get up because of how much traffic there is. It's ridiculous. I was like, cool. So I wasn't able to go to the Griffith or get my footage for my vlog. So also during my trip I saw Spider-Man Brand New Day, which is why last episode was filmed in a car, because I wasn't at home and I didn't have any of my stuff. I went to go see that with my girlfriend. We saw it a second time in theaters. And I just saw that they're going to release the movie in IMAX on the 7th of August, which is it'll already be on IMAX now when this episode's out. So I might see it a third time just to see it in IMAX, because I'm going to talk about it a little later. I had my first IMAX theater experience, and I would love to see the Spider-Man movie in IMAX. They were waiting for the Odyssey movie to kick them out. They were forced to use the Screen X. They had to be like, oh, see this movie on Screen X. This movie was made for Screen X screens. And from what I've seen of the Screen X theaters, not the most desirable way for me to watch a movie, in my opinion. But I would like to see it in IMAX. I wonder if it's because is it all in IMAX, or is it just certain sequences the screen gets wider? I'm not sure. So that would be fun. I'll probably talk about, if I have any extra thoughts, I'll probably talk about that in the next episode. I do have some thoughts about the internet's reactions to this movie, specifically one aspect, and I don't think I have to. I'm not going to spoil the big the secret's already out, but I'm not going to spoil because I don't have to for what I wanted to talk about. This week's edition of I Hate TikTok because they like to ruin everything. And this week they did the Spider-Man Brand New Day movie. I've seen a ton of videos about this. Every now and then when I check how my videos are doing on TikTok, I'll see like one TikTok like on the homepage. I first encountered the talking point on TikTok about how in the movie, spoilers for Spider-Man Brand New Day, Peter Parker uses like facial recognition technology and like surveillance footage to track the villain. He has like a short little video from like his mask's like HUD, and he's like cross-reference this and try and find surveillance footage and track, to try and find information about the villain of the movie. And he's able to do that. That's how he finds out the identity of the villain and where they are going next. Near like near in like the middle part of the movie. And people have that stirred up a lot of controversy and a lot of people criticizing the movie and calling it surveillance propaganda, especially in recent times with the emergence of flock cameras, which are these security cameras that from what I've seen, they have like traffic cameras. If you're speeding or like doing something illegal on the road, the security camera will take a picture of your license and like send it to some kind of system or whatever. Typically they'll like delete the picture like a day or like a week later. Those flock cameras, however, they use AI. They just keep track of like more than just the license plate, like details of your vehicle. I don't know how much of it. I don't know like the extent of it. I don't know if it just applies to vehicles, like, because I think maybe the fear is like, you could probably use that technology and like extend it to people. Like you scan someone and you're like, you use AI to be like what all their features, and like you can so easily track them like wherever they go. And that's obviously like that can get scary. Like the government, using artificial intelligence to just use and surveillance cameras to just understand everything about someone if they show up on a camera. That's a scary thing in a lot of places. Some counties are trying to like ban them. I saw in Minnesota, there was a place that had like 8 flock cameras and they all just disappeared overnight because I guess citizens just ripped them off in the dark of night. And people have taken this Spider-Man movie to being like somewhat like mild propaganda for the concept of like surveillance and like facial recognition, and being like, this is a good thing in the movie. And now all these talking points are coming out about like Marvel movies being military propaganda, this, and all these. I don't know. It's like, it's so obnoxious to me that the hysteria that happens with these things and all the moral grandstanding. I saw a comment. This is what really set me off, of someone being like, oh yeah, when I was in the theater and I saw that scene, that's what reminded me that this was a Disney movie. And I'm like, great. Like, you already watched the movie, so you can be like, guys, let's all boycott this movie. I've already seen it, but let's all boycott this movie. Nobody see it. I already saw it, so it's too late for me. But everybody else, don't give them money. I already paid for my ticket, but I'm still gonna be like, I'm gonna advise against watching it because I'm morally righteous. You should have realized that after the 15th Marvel movie, because there's been a lot of them. This isn't just the first one to pop up out of the blue. But you still, because everyone who is criticizing the movie, they've all seen it. They all already watched it. They probably bought their tickets and they saw it opening night. Movies have been doing this for like forever. Like, it's people being like, how do I find this person? Facial recognition scan. I found them over here. Blah blah blah. This location. Like, it's just like a writing device. Like, how do you track someone if you can't, if they don't carry around their Find My iPhone? Oh, I facial recognition scan. And people have been piggybacking off of this to lobby more criticisms that are like, I don't know, it's because they're like, oh, and it's also pro AI because Peter Parker has an AI assistant, and it's like, Marvel movies have been doing that since 2008. The AI assistant. It just doesn't suddenly just become propaganda. Someone said that this is like pro police movie because Spider-Man works with police, works with the law. And obviously I understand that the institution of the police force does a lot of harm, and it is, designed to like oppress people in a lot of ways. However, a lot of the people, the scene that they cite is the one where Peter throws Scorpion into a cop car and almost kills a cop. I think in that case, and the movie portrays that as like a negative thing that Peter does. I think in that case, I wouldn't be so quick to call that propaganda, because, the cop was going to stop a dangerous, superpowered criminal with a humongous scorpion mechanical tail. I don't know. Did they want like Spider-Man to get like applauded for almost killing that lady, the lady cop? And people have also compared it to The Dark Knight, because in that, Batman creates like this mass surveillance system in order to find the Joker. And one of Batman's partners, Lucius Fox, is like, I disagree with this morally. Like, I'll help you find the Joker, but after that, I cannot support this. And I think Batman like destroys it at the end because it's a wrong thing to do. And they're like, the movie portrays it as morally wrong. But I think in both cases, in both these movies, they do it as like an act of desperation, because they gotta find the person who's doing all this harm. And so I think like the use of the term like propaganda specifically like irritates me, because I didn't, and I don't think 95% of people, let's say even 99, I don't think 99% of people came out of that movie with like the thought in their head that like, oh man, mass surveillance is great. I think we should do that in real life. And even the Marvel movies themselves have made cases against why the government should not have the resources that superheroes do, because you can't always trust their agendas or what their intentions are. Like Captain America: Civil War. It's another one of those like moral panic things that I think only exist because of social media. A similar thing has happened that I do actually agree with, in light of the recent cancellations by the MCU. I talked about it in the last episode too. Wonder Man Season 2, after being announced like a month ago, got canceled. They just said that like flat out got canceled. Like all the showrunners and the main actors were all like, I don't know why they did that. We had everything lined up to do it, but they just canceled it. And also the Blade movie that they announced way back in 2019, starring Mahershala Ali. That was in like production hell for so long, and just now recently it's like been confirmed that that's not happening, at least not with Mahershala and not in the like original form. And people have pointed out, which I do agree with, that if I'm being charitable, it's a very poor coincidence that these projects being canceled are ones led by black men, especially when you consider there's also Armor Wars, which is going to be a Don Cheadle-led War Machine. I think it was a show originally, then they changed it to being a movie, and we have not heard anything about it. It's almost definitely canceled. So that's 3 things so far, 3 things that have been announced by Marvel that got canceled, which is something that almost never happens in the MCU. That, like, the only time that happened before was with the Inhumans. I can't think of a time where it's happened since then, except for those 3 projects, and they've all been they were all going to star black men. And people have also pointed out like how they've shafted a lot of characters of color, like Monica Rambeau, who's in the Marvels. The post-credit scene in the Marvels kind of sets up something that it would make sense if it was very important to the next Avengers movie, for a specific reason that I won't spoil, but she's nowhere to be seen in the Doomsday cast or any of the marketing. Ironhearts was a show that also starring a black woman, a show that I actually like. That sets up kind of like a not really a cliffhanger, but like a setup for a next season. I don't think that one's ever going to get released, or I don't think that second season's ever going to get made. Steve Rogers coming back in the Avengers Doomsday after Sam Wilson like barely getting a chance to be Captain America on his own. For being realistic, this is something that I've noticed and pointed out before. A lot of comic Marvel fans, very racist. I guess maybe not specifically comic fans, but a lot of people that have been fans of these movies, kind of racist, because for the longest time they did appeal specifically to, the people who you would see on screen most of all, like most of the Infinity Saga were films led by white guys, and that's who they appealed to the most. I would know because I am a white guy, and I do feel like those movies really did appeal to me. But after Endgame, they did a lot more stories with like people of color, ones focusing more on women. There was only one movie starring only one solo female-led movie in the entire Infinity Saga, and so it feels like Marvel, or more so Disney, is like crumbling against the pressure of all the people online who post like, oh, the Blacked in America. I read a comment about that in an earlier episode. People being against there being any non-whiteness in any of their Marvel movies. We don't like it. Even Avengers Doomsday, they're bringing back all the old X-Men. Those guys are all white. They didn't even bring back Storm because she wasn't white. I'm hoping that Wonder Man, the actor from Wonder Man, wins the Emmy that he was nominated for. I feel like that makes it, if there's like enough, outspoken people, I think there's a chance that they could bring Wonder Man back. I mean, they'll probably bring the character back regardless. Maybe not, though. I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah, so that's something that I do think is kind of a problem that I do kind of agree with. I also wanted to talk about, because I saw the trailer for the Robert Pattinson movie. I think it's called Dateline. Is it called Dateline? The one where he plays Chris Hansen, who Chris Hansen made the popular show To Catch a Predator, which is where they do stings and they catch pedophiles. And it was on TV. And the story about that is that it got canceled after they exposed like some kind of politician who killed himself during their sting, and so they got like sued, and they had to just end the show. I think they've since brought it back on like some like their own website, their own like network or whatever, and that spawned like 1 million people doing it on YouTube, for better or for worse. And I guess they're making a movie about the story behind that show and the Chris Hansen himself, and that it has a clip of the trailer starts with like a clip of Robert Pattinson as Chris Hansen doing like one of the stings where he's like, take a seat right over there. What are you doing here tonight? His impression is good. Robert Pattinson's good at doing funny little voices. And he's catching the guy who plays the pedophile in that scene is the same guy who plays Flash Thompson in the MCU Spider-Man movies. And so it's just funny seeing, Spider-Man movie just came out, and then the actor for this guy being in this movie and being like, what has Flash Thompson been up to since the last Spider-Man movie? Oh my gosh. MIT has really done a number on his brain chemistry. And it looks like in the trailer of the movie, it's going to like kind of center around Chris Hansen being like obsessed with like the ratings of the show, to the point. I think maybe it's going to lead up to the point where the show gets canceled because the guy killed himself. And it's an interesting angle seeing him, because it's a nice thing that he's doing, exposing these people and getting them arrested if they're doing illegal stuff, especially to children. There's a scene in the trailer where they have Skylar Gisondo, who plays like the decoy that they use, which is like an adult person like acting as like a little boy, the person that like the predators like interacted with, who's like, oh yeah, I'm 13 and I'm just by myself alone. I'm gonna go get a snack in the bathroom. Yeah, that's where we keep our snacks, in the bathroom. And that's when Chris Hansen comes out. They have him playing one of the decoys, and in the scene he's just like, are we gonna do a rehearsal? And it looks like the lady who like works with Chris Hansen is just like, hey, we're doing a rehearsal right now, but it's like the actual thing. I don't know if that's based on real stories of them like just like what's the word, like blindsiding these decoys into actually like interacting with child predators, which that can get dangerous if you put them in that position, because it's like if you expose those guys, they could be like, okay, I have nothing left to lose, I'm just going to start killing people, I'm just going to start biting and attacking. That could be dangerous, and if that's true, that's really messed up. I don't know the ins and outs of the Chris Hansen thing. Maybe I don't know if it's going to be like how accurate it's going to be. It doesn't seem to like paint Chris Hansen in a necessarily like fully like good light. So I'm very interested in that movie, one for the subject matter, because I've seen so many parts of that show, and also for another great performance by Robert Pattinson after how many movies has he been in this year? After the drama and the Odyssey, and then he's going to be in Dune 3, and now he's going to be in this. Can never get sick of that old Robert Pattinson. Speaking of which, before I talk about the big movie that Robert Pattinson was in, I also wanted to mention another movie. A lot of people would call it a classic film. I saw this one with my girlfriend while I was visiting California, and that is the first Twilight. Many would say Robert Pattinson's breakout role as Edward Cullen in Twilight. And everybody knows the story of Twilight. Girl goes to Washington and meets an interesting fellow, and it turns out he's a vampire, and he comes from a family of vampires who they like to go to high school just over and over again because they can live for hundreds of years. I saw the movie. I never seen it before. And obviously this movie has a very bad reputation. A lot of people are saying it's the cringiest thing of all time. And there's so many scenes that go viral just because of how bad they were. And nobody who was making it cared. Especially Robert Pattinson. He just did not care about what was going on in those movies. And yeah, I was interested to see it because I was like, I know Robert Pattinson from good stuff that he's been in, like the movie Good Time, the movie The Drama. So I was going into this movie with all the ideas that the internet and just the public have, burnt into my brain about how bad this movie is. And I gotta say, I'm not gonna get too in depth into it. Maybe when I watch the other 4, I think there's 5 total. I think after I watch the whole saga, maybe I'll do a more in-depth episode. But I just gotta say, with this first one, maybe it gets worse in the rest of the movies. And this might be a hot take. I did not find this one to be super cringy. Like, I did not find it to be like unbearable to sit through. Like, I wasn't scoffing at every bit of dialogue and being like, how did this get made to... And maybe this is like just the best one of the saga, and then they all get cringier from then on, because I guess the people just didn't care. They were like, oh, it makes money. Let's just keep making them. One every year, or however many they made, how fast they made them. But I didn't find it that cringy. And like, I get the thing is like, a lot of the dialogue and the scenes between Kristen Stewart's character, Bella, and Edward Cullen, they're so awkward. And you're meant to watch them. And a lot of people watch that and they're like, oh. But like, it kind of works because he's a vampire. He doesn't know how to be a normal human. And she's also like a weirdo. And so I'm like, this kind of, with these characters, it kind of makes sense why they're acting this way. Like, I watch Robert Pattinson. Maybe this is just because of how a good performance by Robert Pattinson, but I see him doing like the awkward, cringy, stilted dialogue, and I'm not like, oh, this is poorly executed. I'm like, this is perfectly executed for what they're going for, because he's a vampire and he's a weirdo. So I was like pleasantly surprised to be like, I don't actually hate this as much. Except if you see like a lot of other characters that aren't vampires or like a weirdo like Bella, like with the dad, some of Bella's friends, they're kind of like very like early 2000s coded, but they're normal, their dialogue's normal. It's just these two that are just fucking weird. And then the other vampires show up. I kind of lost. It wasn't the most interesting thing to me in like the last 30 minutes when suddenly they're like, there's other vampires that want to kill us, and they want to kill you too because you smell so good. That's what I was confused, because I was like, why they just see her and they're like instant, like, we have to kill her. Apparently it's just because she smells so tasty to vampires. Twilight is a good movie, and I'm gonna die on that hill. That's what I'm saying right now. First Twilight, worth a watch. Anyways, let's get off of that. Let's actually talk about the movie of the summer. This is the movie of the summer, not Spider-Man, not Supergirl, definitely not Supergirl, not Toy Story. The movie I'm talking about in this episode is an adaptation of a classic tale, Homer's The Odyssey. It features a hero leaving their home as opposing forces sort of infiltrate that home and kind of take it over in their leave. They encounter many beasts on their quest, and including a giant Cyclops-looking creature. And they return home to defend this home from the opposing forces. And that movie is none other than the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. This is a review of SpongeBob the movie from, I think, 2004. We'll be talking about this amazing adaptation of the Odyssey. It's a great modernization of the tale that uses familiar elements like SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs and Plankton. A great movie. I thought the I like the scene in the beginning where he brushes his eyes with his double bristled toothbrush. I thought that was a great scene. The voice cast, great as always. SpongeBob, voiced by Tom Kenny. Mr. Krabs, voiced by Clancy Brown, who's in everything. Also, Scarlett Johansson makes a not a cameo, but she's a voice role as Mandy the mermaid. Just kidding. I'm talking about a different adaptation of The Odyssey. Simply titled The Odyssey, directed by Christopher Nolan, starring every actor on planet Earth, some of which were in a movie that came out like a week after the Spider-Man movie. But this was a highly anticipated movie. After the success of Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, came out like 2023, that crushed. That was huge. Tickets went on sale for The Odyssey like a year in advance, and they still sold out. I didn't see it. I wasn't planning on seeing it like opening night. I saw it like a few days after I saw Spider-Man opening night, because I waited to see it with my girlfriend Catherine, and I saw it in an IMAX. The first time I've ever been in an IMAX theater, and I gotta say that screen is humongous. Like I had to turn my head to be like, if something was on one side of the screen, I had to go like to see it. I'm kind of a Christopher Nolan noob because I've only ever seen the Dark Knight trilogy and Oppenheimer. Those are the only movies that I've seen of his. And in my mind, he's 4 for 4. I know I haven't seen Inception or Interstellar. Everybody raves about those. If you ask any, probably 75% of guys, if you ask them their favorite movie, it'll be one of those two. And that's all I've seen of Christopher Nolan. I was watching some interviews with him. I like how Christopher Nolan seems like he actually like watches movies, not just like artsy, like super artsy, like pretentious movies. Because I've seen multiple interviews with him where he's like, when Oppenheimer was coming out, it kind of became like a meme that he cast the guy who plays Roderick in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies. And he makes like a reference to like Roderick Rules in one of his interviews. So I assume he's seen at least one of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies, which is a great trilogy of movies, so I wouldn't be surprised. He makes a reference to like, in an interview for The Odyssey, he's like he says like Odysseus is far from home, and he was like, that's the name of one of the Spider-Man movies, which I most people would not know that. Like if they're not like Marvel fans or like, you know, they wouldn't know like what one of them is called Far From Home, or like that wouldn't like click in their brain. So it seems like he's like, you know, dialed in that sense. And I saw another one where Christopher Nolan is a big fan of the Fast and Furious saga, and I'm sure a lot of the more like pretentious Christopher Nolan fans will be like, how dare he stoop to the level of watching those Fast and Furious movies? Like they probably think that they're above that, or that he's above that because he makes like more meaningful or more like artistic or auteur-led films. But he just seems like a guy that like just likes to watch movies, and he likes all sorts of movies. I have a deep respect for people who watch movies and aren't pretentious, because that's me. I like, if you say like, I think most people expect when you go like, oh yeah, I like watching movies, they're like, have you seen the Russian expressionist experimental film from 1963 that's 70 hours long? And so yeah, I like Christopher Nolan in that aspect. And spoilers for The Odyssey, I'm just going to put that out there. I know Homer's The Odyssey is a tale as old as time, but I haven't read it. I'm sure most people who saw this movie haven't read it. I know the only thing I knew is that he fought a Cyclops, and that was it. So spoilers, because a lot of the story was new to me. And I gotta say, I know I said all the nice stuff about Christopher Nolan in the beginning here, but I gotta level with you, Chrissy, I gotta level with you here, okay? Listen, you need, whoever your audio mixer is, you gotta sit him down and just say like, I'm sorry, man, but I have to let you go. Please, Chris, you need to fire your audio mixer, because this movie, it was at many times in the movie was so difficult to understand what the characters were saying, because the sound effects or the music was so loud, and I don't know, just the audio mixing in this, I gotta level with you here. Levels, the audio levels specifically, okay? You gotta learn to just, here's a new, just keep this in mind. After you do your audio, here, you keep your old audio guy, okay? Don't fire him, actually. Do your stuff, your audio mixing, everything normally. Then right before you release the movie, go to the dialogue and just crank that up by like 5 decibels, and you're good. You're perfect, okay? I need to be able to hear the dialogue, and so there were many parts of the movie where people are talking, and I'm like, huh? What did he say? I mean, thankfully, Christopher Nolan is a good visual storyteller, so a lot of the time, you could kind of, when people are telling stories about characters, you kind of just see that playing over the dialogue. And it's especially hard when they're all saying like they're talking about like these Greek names that everybody has. The scene with John Bernthal, when Tom Holland goes to see John Bernthal, he's like, yeah, my name is... he's just saying all these Greek names in a row, and I'm like, whoa, slow down. What's going on? Somebody was named... I could not tell you who most of the characters' names in this movie are. I know Matt Damon is Odysseus. That's the only name that I know. There was some guy named like Argemnemnon or like something like Dodecahedron or like Filet Mignon or something. Benny Safdie's character with the big black armor. His name was like Omega Smegma or something. I was not able to pick up on what his name fully was. Tom Holland's character is like Tinnitus or Tritus or something. It was so hard for me to understand what any of the characters' names were, which kind of made it hard at times. But other than that, aside from the audio mix, like when they're in the dinner place with all the suitors, which is like Robert Pattinson and all like the evil guys, where Anne Hathaway's character is like behind the gate. When they're in that place, like the dining hall, turn the crowd down. Like you hear all the crowd chatter, but it's so loud. Like right at the beginning, like it was so hard to hear what anybody was saying. And when they're sailing, the waves are so loud too. It's like, come on. That's like my biggest issue with the movie. And I know that he's had movies in the past, like Tenet specifically. Like the one thing that I remember most people saying about the movie Tenet is that it was nearly impossible to understand the dialogue because of how poorly it was mixed, which led to people not understanding the movie at all, because it deals with like weird like time travel stuff. I watched Oppenheimer with headphones, so it wasn't as hard for me to understand with that. And actually, speaking of like the timeline thing, this movie does, in typical Christopher Nolan fashion, it tells the events like out of order. So it starts with like Tom Holland, who's like, you know, he's Odysseus' son, but he's like 20 something years old in this. And then we hear like the story of Odysseus, and then we go back to seeing like Odysseus' trek, and then we go to Odysseus like now, like after he's already lost. And then we go back to seeing Odysseus, and we're at Tom Holland. So it's like it's not like a linear story. And I thought that really worked with the way that the movie was like structured. I like the way that it was told out of order. From here on out, it's gonna be mostly positives. I don't have that much to say aside from just being like this is good, great job. Like the movie is beautifully shot. Seeing it in IMAX, I don't regret seeing it in IMAX because it's just like the scope of things and just seeing like that, how big the screen is and all the stuff that you can fit in there. I do think you don't have to see it in IMAX, which might be, I don't know, that might be like shocking to say. And the actors, everyone in this is like giving a great performance. Obviously, you got Matt Damon. I don't think I've seen that much stuff with Matt Damon in it, actually. I saw a little bit of The Martian. I can't remember if there's like a specific like Matt Damon movie, like starring Matt Damon movie that I've seen. But he was really great in this. Obviously, Anne Hathaway. Tom Holland is good. It's weird seeing Tom Holland, John Bernthal, and Zendaya. They're all in this. Tom Holland's like a main character. But seeing them all, I rewatched the Spider-Man movie in theaters the day I went to see the Odyssey. So I went from Spider-Man straight into the Odyssey. It's so weird seeing those same people just playing like different characters. Especially when Tom Holland and John Bernthal's characters also have like a pretty meaty scene together in the Odyssey. Yeah, John Bernthal is great in this. I like how John Bernthal, it seems like he's now getting his dues and people are starting to like notice him more. Like he's in 2 of the biggest blockbusters of the year. He got cast in those and now he's becoming like more of a mainstream name. Where it seems like it was kind of hard for him to like break through to the mainstream. I've expressed opinions on John Bernthal. There was actually breaking news about Jon Bernthal. This guy, the big thing with him that I've called him out for in the past is that he always used to hate on napping and people that take naps. And I had a big problem with that. Breaking news. Play the clip, guys. Play the clip of Jon Bernthal napping.
Is how good it is. They've only been together for a year, and you can see how thrilled he is about it. Yeah. You can see in her very subtle commentary that, like, she.
I need a fucking nap. I need a fucking nap.
Yeah. Looks like somebody got a little bit sleepy. Maybe that's why he's gone mainstream now. He's finally appreciated the value of a nap. That's all he had to do. What was I saying in this? Yeah, all the actors are great. Anne Hathaway, I don't know if I mentioned her. The guy, what's his name? Hamish Patel. I think that's his name. I might be wrong. I'll correct myself if I am. He plays like Odysseus' like second in command. He's also great in that. There's just like a lot of great moments and little bits in this. Like all the stops that Odysseus and his team make on their trip. They all have just like a different crazy thing happen to them. Like, of course, they have the Cyclops, which is the Cyclops. Like, it looks like it was like Christopher Nolan is famous for being sparing with his CGI use, and so this Cyclops was like mostly like a practical effect. I don't know if they did it with like maybe it was like a big like puppet, or maybe it was like some forced perspective stuff. But the Cyclops looked really good. The design of like the sideways nose and the sideways eye was like very upsetting and also like realistic. And after going to the one place with a giant guy, they go to another place and they encounter like a bunch of guys who are smaller than the Cyclops, but they're also like 10 feet tall. And that one was also done practically because they had like 7-foot tall guys. They had Odysseus' men be played by like 5-foot tall guys, so it looked like they were even bigger than they are in real life. A lot of moments in this where Matt Damon's character is like, run back to the boat, and they all run back to the boat in a hurry. A lot of moments like that. So if you like moments like that, they're here in this movie. Then they encounter the Cersei lady. That was a really great scene. People are praising her performance in this, which is they should be doing that. That's good. Where she feeds them the stuff and then turns them into pigs. Really, I didn't expect that. Really unsettling visuals and just like idea. The Trojan horse scene was, I mean, I've seen the Trojan horse get depicted in all sorts of things. Mr. Peabody and Sherman, for instance. But this really put it into a perspective that was just so uncomfortable. Just seeing all of them like crammed in there, like one on top of another. Two of them just like drown because like the water, like the tide goes up and just drowns one of them. So now they just got like two dead guys at the bottom. And they're all like peeing and shitting all over themselves because they're in this thing for like presumably like days. It's just really so uncomfortable just imagining them being in that. And once Odysseus gets back to Ithaca, he pretends to be like a beggar is what they call them. People who have like no food and they beg for stuff. And he talks to his wife while not like revealing his identity. And he has this scene where he talks about his guilt surrounding like what they did in Troy, like lighting down the place and all the murders, especially like Zendaya's character, who we see like he has like visions of throughout the movie. I thought that was a really great. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie, his whole monologue, and we see all the stuff that happened in Troy. Like we see the shot of him throughout the movie of him like looking in horror, and we're like, man, what moments are leading up to that? And it's just like him thinking about his guilt surrounding the whole Trojan horse kerfuffle. And then he has all the suitors. They're trying to get Anne Hathaway to remarry because Odysseus has been gone for like 20 something years. And they're like, dude, just remarry. We need a king for this kingdom. They don't want it to be Tom Holland's character because they think of him as like a coward or like weak or whatever. They have this challenge for them to string Odysseus' bow. He was the only one who could string the bow and shoot the arrow through these axes, and none of them can do it. And then Odysseus reveals himself by doing it himself and shooting the arrow, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's Odysseus. And I thought that was a really great moment. And I like the story of like Odysseus being this, he was widely loved, he was like the strongest in Ithaca, he could do things that nobody else could. That kind of fueled his like hubris as to him being like, let's go to this place, let's go to this, which like ended up eventually getting like all of his crew killed. And there were times when he tried to stop it. And that leads to the fight at the end, which I do think, if I could give a criticism to the movie, I thought the ending fight was kind of goofy. I mean, I thought it was cool seeing all the people fight, and obviously it looked great, and it was a good payoff. But seeing him, I don't know, I know he was like strong, but he's fighting like 400 guys at the same time, and he has a bow and arrow. I know none of them have weapons because they locked off all the weapons. But I'm still like, they could all just dogpile on him and kill him. And later, one of the guys go and he tears a hole. One of the suitors, like one of the bad guys, like tears a hole through the ceiling and like starts throwing weapons down to the other guys so they can fight back. And they all have him like circled at the end. But Tom Holland's character is also up there. And he takes out the bad guy and he throws a sword right down to Matt Damon and he catches it. And like, that's kind of a coincidence that he just so happens to end up right under the very small hole so Tom Holland can pass him a sword so he can defend himself. I also thought like a lot of the fighting, like a lot of the combat in that scene, it kind of seemed like a little bit like too modern looking to me. Like they're doing like these like crazy like intricate like professionally done moves. I feel like they would all just be like, I don't know. I feel like it would be like a lot more sloppy. But maybe this is just like a creative choice that they wanted to change for this to make the fight more interesting. Because I'm sure if they like portrayed it like more realistically than how it would be at that time, it would not be a very interesting fight. I like blockbuster movies that have like substance behind them, and Christopher Nolan is good at doing that. The music was great. I mean, the music was turned up to like 11, so I was able to hear the music really well, and I could say that the music is good. The siren song was good. I like that scene with the sirens. If a lot of moments in this movie, if you just have a great song playing and well-written dialogue, like a monologue of someone talking over like a scene of like cool stuff happening, like the siren song scene, the scene with Odysseus explaining his guilt over the Battle of Troy. If you just have that, I'm like, this is great. I love this. This is amazing. The scene where they go the Hades scene, they have all like the dead people talk to them. So that was awesome. Revealing like Robert Pattinson's character just being such a scumbag who like gives his brother like, because they do like a raffle to see who like goes to fight, and Robert Pattinson's character like draws like getting drafted, but he gives it to his brother, and the brother's there, and like the brother's the first person that we see like get killed in the movie, and Odysseus like lied to them about them being in the Trojan horse. Like not even they knew, despite being on Odysseus' like army, they didn't even know that the Trojan horse had people in it. And he gets killed like giving information to the Spartans. Who are the people that they fight? I don't know. I don't know the story of the Trojan horse that well, I guess. Yeah, I just thought it had like I just thought it was a great movie. I might need some time. I do remember liking Oppenheimer a bit more than this one. But that doesn't say much because I love both of those movies. And despite being like 3 hours long, both of them, I didn't feel the runtime at all. But yeah, I definitely would recommend this movie. Yeah, that's all my thoughts that I have about the Odyssey. Next episode, I'm going to talk about the SpongeBob movie for real this time. I'm going to do an in-depth, 2-hour-long exploration into the SpongeBob movie. But yeah, that's all for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Goodbye.